Suppose we don't go into it. Oh yeah. Because it's Ekadashi Adivas. It's
make it so
it's Twadashi. No, it's Dashami. It's Dashami, isn't it? Well, if Ekadashi is tomorrow, it's Dashami, yeah.
How is that called, yeah?
Well,
It's
yeah.
not Dashami then.
10th day, Dashami.
No, I know. I'm just wondering if it's...
Navami, Dashami, Ekadashi.
This is the maximum.
Fully conversant in Sanskrit. It's today being so it'll be 21, is it?
Yeah, first one. No. 21 here. Perfect.
Page 94. The pleasure of His Lordship, Sriman Mahaprabhu, or their Lordship, Sriman Mahaprabhu and Radhika Giridhari, of course, yeah. Sarvabhauma Vandam Navyatarka Shankaram Vastu Sarvabhauma Dashkatakri Vatavado Dhanari Ambaram Krishna Bhakti Mandiram Prema Dama Devamigo Novi Gaura Sundaram Krishna 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 Nama Kirtan you staying or?
Yeah, I am, yeah. Just wanted to say.
Okay. Let's just open it just here. Sanatan Goswami visits the Lord at Jagannath Puri. It's exactly the part I was reading just then in Ireland. Sripad house. It's slightly further on in the...
You read in the morning.
What? Did you read this in the morning?
Like Thai Maharaj was reading when like Mahaprabhu is speaking with Sanatan Goswami and Haridas Thakur about like the advices that Jagannath Pandit gave to Sanatan Goswami.
Oh, yeah.
He was a little bit upset with Jagannath Pandit saying like, oh, like you're giving advices to your senior, like who are you? You're just like a little kid, like telling to Jagannath Pandit that you do angrily.
Yeah, that's right. That's in here, isn't it? In this
Yeah,
chapter.
that's what you were reading in the morning, there.
Oh yeah, it's right. We didn't quite get to the end of the chapter. It's just very near the end there. So we'll just carry on reading from where we were. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda
Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jai Dvaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
This is reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antya Leela, chapter 4. Sanatan Goswami visits the Lord at Jagannath Puri. And going back to verse 176. Good verse to remember. Dvaite Bodra Bodra Gyan Shaba Mano Dharma E Bhala E Manda E Saba Brahma. In the material world, conceptions of good and bad are all mental speculations. Therefore saying, this is good and this is bad, is all a mistake. Purport: Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the absolute truth, ever existing with different varieties of energies. When one is absorbed in the illusory energy of Krishna and cannot understand Krishna, one cannot ascertain what is good for him and what is bad. Conceptions of good and bad are all imaginations or mental speculations. When one forgets that he is an eternal servant of Krishna, he wants to enjoy the material world through different plans. At that time he distinguishes between material plans that are good and those that are bad. Actually, however, they're all false. So then Srila Guru Maharaj commenting about this. Maya, Maya is misconception, Maya, what is not. So any sort of anything which is conceived on the basis of that is going to be wrong. It's Manodharma. It's just the dharma of the mind, which is illusory because the mind isn't concerned really with anything to do with Krishna consciousness. It's just, they say sankalpa vikalpa. It's just combining ideas and dissolving ideas continuously. And actually, the mind is a product of the false ego, ahamkara. So the mind can therefore never be spiritual. So obviously, when we think about the pastimes of Krishna, that's why it's cautioned everywhere that if you just think about the transcendental pastimes of Krishna, particularly in the higher levels, that's inevitably and bound to be, it must be contaminated because it's being filtered through our mental prejudices of various kinds, So the thing is pure, but by the time we register it, when it's come through our mental system, it's not. It's something else. It's been perverted and something else. So it's called manodharma. Sometimes the mind, though, is called chitta, consciousness, cheto darpanamarjanam, cleansing the mirror of the mind. So Chitta there is meaning mind, or can also mean heart, can also mean soul. That verse in the Bhagavad Gita in the 6th chapter, Dhyana Yoga, if I can remember, the stage of trance or samadhi is reached when one's material mental activities are completely controlled by practice of yoga. This is characterized by one's ability, now this is Srila Prabhupada's translation, to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness and enjoys himself through transcendental senses. In such a position one is never deviated, even in the midst of the greatest difficulties, and upon achieving this he thinks there's no greater gain. And this indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising due to material contact. So the goal, the whole purpose of yoga in general, every kind of yoga, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Abhyasa Yoga, Buddha Yoga, is Chitta Vritti Nirodha, to quell, to calm, to control the oscillations of the mind, enter into equanimous state. Samadhi, samadhi. D means to be fixed, and sama means equality. So, but to see the self by the pure mind, there's no such thing. There's a translation, of course, that Srila Prabhupada has given, but one is seeing the self with the self, actually. Just like when the water in the pond or the lake, when it becomes still and calm, it's not stirred up, then it settles and you can see the bottom, right? So when the mind is not disturbed, is you can say controlled on a peaceful state, then you can perceive, the self can perceive itself, because there's no barrier, no filter in the way. But just to understand that the mind, using the mind itself in its material representation, can never produce or give truth, because it's part of the material energy. And so text 177, the humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater. And there's that verse from Bhagavad Gita. Can you quote it? Who knows the most important 35 verses of Bhagavad Gita? Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmane Gavi Hastini Shuni Chaiva Svapakecha Pandita Samadarshana. That was Bhagavad Gita 5.18, and then Bhagavad Gita 6.8. Sometimes when these verses are quoted, like Mahaprabhu will be speaking something, and then there'll be some verses, but it doesn't say whether he's actually saying that, quoting these verses from the Shastra, or Kaviraj Goswami is inserting them at that point, because illustrating what Mahaprabhu is saying, right? But either way, so this is next one, Bhagavad Gita 6.8. One who is fully satisfied in knowledge obtained and practically applied in life, who is always determined and fixed in his spiritual position, who completely controls his senses and who sees pebbles, stones and gold on the same level, is understood to be a perfect yogi. So back to Mahaprabhu, verse 179. Amita Shanashi Amar Shamadushti Dharma Chandan Pankiti Amar Jnana Hoya Shama. Since I am in the renounced order, my duty is to make no distinctions and be equipoised. My knowledge must be equally disposed towards sandalwood pulp and dirty mud. So this is supposed to be a sannyasi, right? That Srila Govinda Maharaj himself told me this when I took sannyas. It's supposed to be two qualifications that they can, preach, or at least they want to anyway, if they may be expert or not, and that they're equal, they don't get involved in disputes, taking sides and this, So from a sort of more varnashram type point of view, that's supposed to be like that. So that's why, generally speaking, administrative business and activities are for the householder, Grihastha Vaishnavas, right? And so the others will be left free to preach. So then Mahaprabhu is saying, for this reason I cannot reject you, Haridas Thakur. If I hated you, I would deviate from my occupational duty. Haridas kahe, Prabhu, je kahila tumi, e bhaya, pratarana, nohi mani ami. My dear Lord, what you have spoken deals with external formalities. I do not accept it. Amar shava adhame, je ki kori jacha ongikar, din doyalu gun tomar tahate prachar. My Lord, we are all fallen, but you've accepted us due to your attribute of being merciful to the fallen. This is well known all over the world. Prabhu Hasi kahe, shun Haridas Sanatan, Tatvata koi tomar vishai jaiche moraman. Lord Chaitanya smiled and said, listen, Haridas and Sanatan, now I'm speaking the truth about how my mind is attached to you. My dear Haridas and Sanatan, I think of you as my little boys, to be maintained by me. The maintainer never takes seriously any faults of the maintained. I always think of myself as deserving no respect, but because of affection, I always consider you to be like my little children. When the child passes stool and urine that touch the body of the mother never hates the child. On the contrary, she takes much pleasure in cleansing him. The stool and urine of the child appear like sandalwood pulp to the mother. Similarly, when the foul moisture oozing from the sores of Sanatan touches my body, I have no hatred for him. Haridas kai, tumi Ishvar doyamoy, tomar gambir ridoy bhujana najoy. Haridas Thakur said, my dear sir, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead and are most merciful towards us. No one can understand what is within your deeply affectionate heart. You embraced the leper Vasudeva, whose body was fully infected by worms. You are so kind that in spite of his condition you embraced him. And by embracing him you made his body as beautiful as that of Cupid. We cannot understand the waves of your mercy. Prabhu Kai, Vaishnavdeya prakrit kabunoi, aprakrit deha muktera chit anandamai. Mahaprabhu said, the body of a devotee is never material. It is considered to be transcendental, full of spiritual bliss. Purport. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is trying to convince Haridas Thakur and Sanatan Goswami that a devotee whose life is dedicated to the service of the Lord is never in the material conception. That's why we're not supposed to see Vaishnavas. What's that verse in the, I don't know where it's from, it's quoted in Prabhupada Jivanamritam, Vaishnava Jati Buddhi Noi. You don't think of a Vaishnava according to caste and background and etc. So because they're dedicated to the service of the Lord, they're never in the material conception. Because he always engages in the service of the Lord, his body is transcendental and full of spiritual bliss. One should never consider his body material, just as one should never consider the body of the deity worshipped in the temple to be made of stone or wood. Factually, the deity is directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead, without a doubt. The injunctions of the Padma Puran therefore state, this is the verse here, Arche Vishnu Shiladir Gurushu Naramatir Vaishnave Jati Buddhi Josheva Naraki Saha. That person is a resident of hell who considers the deity worshipped in the temple to be stone or wood, who considers the spiritual master an ordinary man, and who thinks that the body of a Vaishnava, fully dedicated to the service of the Lord, belongs to the material modes of nature. Tikka kale bhakta kare atma samarpan. Famous verse again. Tikka kale bhakta kare atma samarpan, se kale Krishna tare kare atma sam. At the time of initiation, when a devotee fully surrenders to the service of the Lord, Krishna accepts him to be as good as himself. Se deha kari tar chit anandamoy, aprakrit dehi tanna charana bhajai. When the devotee's body is thus transformed into spiritual existence, the devotee in that transcendental body renders service to the lotus feet of the Lord. Another quotation coming up from Srimad Bhagavatam 11:29-34. Quote, the living entity who is subjected to birth and death attains immortality when he gives up all material activities, dedicates his life to the execution of my order, and acts according to my directions. In this way he becomes fit to enjoy the spiritual bliss derived from exchanging loving mellows with me. Sanatanera dehe Krishna kondu upajan amma parikite ihan dila pathana. Krishna Samarada manifested these itching sores on the body of Sanatan and sent him here to test me. If I'd hated Sanatan and had not embraced him, I would certainly have been chastised for offences to Krishna. So that's how Mahaprabhu saw it, that's how he took it. Oh, it's a test from Krishna. See, if I act like, repulsed by his itching sores, oozing pus, and don't embrace him, then I'm seeing the body of a devotee as material. Sanatana Goswami is one of the associates of Krishna. There could not be any bad odour from his body. On the first day I embraced him, I smelled the aroma of chatushama, a mixture of sandalwood pulp, camphor, aguru and musk. In fact, however, when the Lord embraced the body of Sanatana Goswami, by the Lord's touch alone there was manifested a fragrance exactly like that of sandalwood pulp. Prabhu kai Sanatan nama nihaduk tomar olingani ami pai bodoshuk. Mahaprabhu continued, my dear Sanatan, do not be aggrieved, for when I embrace you I actually get great pleasure. Stay with me at Jagannath Puri for 1 year, and after that I shall send you to Vrindavan. You must have read previously, right? Sanatana Goswami wanted to commit suicide because he just felt so bad and degraded, and he's had this plan that he would throw himself under the wheel of the cart of Jagannath, and but Mahaprabhu stopped that, and ultimately he said, what is this? You have surrendered to me, your body is not your property, it's my property. So how can you misuse the property of another person? This is not right thinking. So he gave up that idea. And then Mahaprabhu said, because I've got plans for you. He said 4 things he was going to do. Do you remember what they were? 4 tasks he was setting Sanatana Goswami.
Discover the holy places.
You're discovering the lost holy places. Writing, scriptures and commentaries, and then, pardon?
Looking after devotees,
Yeah, you can say, you can interpret it like that. Remember, two more things. Can't remember myself. No, it was teaching devotional service, right? Of course, yeah. He's the teacher of the Sambandha Jnana, Sanatana Goswami, yeah. And then who remembers the things that there's 4 things that Mahaprabhu told about Jagannath Pandit when he wanted to go to Vrindavan, and he wouldn't let him go, and eventually he said, okay, you can go, but you have to observe 4 things. One is don't stay there a very long time. Then don't mix freely with the Dhambasis, because we offer them all respect and like that as being highly elevated in their birth, but their practices may not be helpful for us. But these are, for everyone, for all devotees, really. And then also, and stay under the guidance of Vaishnava when you're there, like Rupa and Sanatan. And then, one more thing. Or was it 3? Anyway, things we can remember for that. After saying this, the Lord again embraced Sanatan Goswami. Thus immediately Sanatan's sores disappeared and his entire body resembled the colour of gold. Seeing this change, Haridas Thakur, greatly astonished, told the Lord, "This is your pastime. My dear Lord, you made Sanatan Goswami drink the water of Jharikand and you actually generated the consequent itching sores on his body. Then you examined him. No one can understand your transcendental pastimes." After embracing both Haridas Thakur and Sanatan Goswami, the Lord returned to his residence. Then Haridas Thakur and Sanatan Goswami, in great ecstatic love, began to describe the Lord's transcendental attributes. In this way, Sanatan Goswami stayed under the care of the Lord and discussed the transcendental qualities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with Haridas Thakur. After they saw the Dol Yatra festival, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed Sanatan Goswami fully about what to do in Vrindavan and bade him farewell. The scene of separation that took place when Sanatan and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took leave of each other is so piteous that it cannot be described here. Sanatan Goswami decided to go to Vrindavan by the very forest path the Lord had traversed. Sanatan Goswami noted from Balabhadra Bhattacharya all the villages, rivers and hills where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had performed his pastimes. Sanatan Goswami met all the devotees of the Lord and then, travelling by that same path, visited the places through which the Lord had passed. As soon as Sanatan Goswami visited a place where the Lord had performed his pastimes on the way, he was immediately filled with ecstatic love. In this way, Sanatan Goswami reached Vrindavan. Later, Rupa Goswami came and met him. Srila Rupa Goswami had been delayed in Bengal for a year because he was dividing his money among his relatives to situate them in their proper positions. So he didn't, although he renounced his, family life, went to join Mahaprabhu, he didn't just abandon his family members. He made sure they were okay. He went back and gave them his money and everything. He collected whatever money he had accumulated in Bengal and divided it among his relatives, the brahmanas and the temples. Thus, after finishing all the tasks he had on his mind, he returned to Vrindavan fully satisfied. The brothers met at Vrindavan, where they stayed to execute the will of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami collected many revealed scriptures, and from the evidence in those scriptures they excavated all the lost sites of pilgrimage. Thus they established temples for the worship of Lord Krishna. That was the other one, establishing temples or places of worship. That was the fourth thing that they did. There's in that the bhajan, isn't it, by Krishna Kirtana na na na, the prayers of the six Goswamis. Is that by Srinivasacharya? I think so, yeah. But there's in that one it says Nana Shastra Vitana Naikani Puno Saddharma Samstapako Lokanam Itakarino Tribhuvane Manyo Karanya Karo Radha Krishna is saying Nana Shastra Vicharan, they wrote many original scriptures describing the worship of Radha and Krishna. Saddharma, yes, that's the eternal religion of the living entity, to worship Lord Krishna. Srila Sanatana Goswami compiled the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. From this book one can understand who is a devotee, what is the process of devotional service, and who is Krishna, the absolute truth. He also wrote a commentary on the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, known as, the clue is in the word, 10th canto, Dashami Tippani. We're just saying about 10th. So today is Dasami, because tomorrow is Ekadashi. So, right? So that's called Dashama Tippani, from which we can understand the transcendental pastimes and ecstatic love of Lord Krishna. He also compiled the Hari Bhakti Vilas, from which we can understand. What do we understand from Hari Bhakti Vilas? What's the subject matter of Hari Bhakti Vilas? Pardon?
The practices of devotional service.
I'll give that about 7 out of 10. No, actually,
Like how to.
of course, anything could be that, yeah.
The
But
no-
specifically,
the nourishing of the Bhakti Lata, of the like the.
oh, you're going from the name, very clever. Well, actually, yeah, Bhakti Vilas means the pastimes of bhakti, of devotional service of the Lord. But really, the Hari Bhakti Vilas is about the Vaishnava, they call Vaishnava or Bhakti Sadachar. What is the behaviours, the daily activities and behaviour of devotees in general. Specifically, mainly also for householder devotees, but everybody included. Like prayers on awakening, different times of the day, different prayers and things. And he compiled that in consultation with Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who was the nephew of Prabodhananda Saraswati. You've heard Prabodhananda Saraswati? Famous devotee of Lord Chaitanya. And he was his uncle then of Gopal Bhatta was Venkata Bhatta, who Mahaprabhu met in South India. When he was touring in South India, he stayed at the house of Venkata Bhatta. Prabodhananda Saraswati was there, and their nephew Gopal Bhatta Goswami was a very small boy at the time. Later on he came to Vrindavan. So the uncle and the nephew, Prabodhananda and Gopal Bhatta, they left the South India actually. I mean, you could say they left because in South India is a different way of it's Ramanuja Vaishnavism, Sri Vaishnavism, which is very much concerned with Vidhi Bhakti. So they're very expert in all the rules and regulations and practices of Bhakti. That's why Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur went to South India, consulted with the acharyas there when he wanted to introduce, when he was establishing the Gaudiya Math for various, the practices and rituals like, doing the yagyas, the fire yagyas, the rituals of sannyas and all these things, because they're the experts on that. And then, so Gopal Bhatta, he brought all that knowledge, which he had, and that was incorporated in Hari Bhakti Vilas.
Did Gopal Bhatta Goswami was a child met Mahaprabhu?
Yeah. So he was actually a Tamil, so the other 5 were from Bengal, the other 5 Goswami. Sri Sanatana Goswami also compiled many other books. Who can enumerate them? The basic principle of all these books is to show us how to love Madan Mohan and Govindaji. So the Bhakti Ratnaka refers to the following books by Srila Sanatana Goswami. 1. Brihad Bhagavatamritam, 2. Hari Bhakti Vilas, and his commentary on that, known as Digdarshini, 3. The Leela Stava, and 4. The commentary on the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, known as Vaishnav Toshani, if that's the same as one that I mentioned before, Dashami Tippani. Yeah, well, the Dashami Tippani is more like a description, it's not really the title of it. It's just saying commentary on the 10th, Dashami Tippani. It's like a title, yeah. And he also compiled many books, all with the aim of describing how to serve the principal deities of Vrindavan, Madan Gopala and Govinda ji. Later, other deities were gradually established and the importance of Vrindavan increased. Right, because at that time it had been like lost to the world, right? That's what we're saying. He established the holy places in Vrindavan, brought them out. Sri Rupa Goswami also wrote many books, the most famous of which is the... Oh, this is an easy one.
And isn't it saying?
Here's a clue. Srila Prabhupada
I know.
did Nectar Devotion. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, yeah. The ocean of the nectar of devotion. From that book one can understand the essence of devotional service to Krishna and the transcendental mellows one can derive from such service. And Sri Rupa Goswami also compiled the book named, what's the higher octave, if you can say, of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the one that we're generally not supposed to read. Yeah, Ujjvala Nilamani, which of course means Nilamani. What's money? Yeah, jewel. Nila means blue, so that's Krishna, right? It's like a blue jewel. And Ujjwal means it's got the means up, the higher or upper. So it means lustrous, shining. It's difficult to translate really into English, but it's the shining blue jewel, or shining, sparkling, lustrous blue jewel, Krishna. And from this one can understand to the fullest limits the loving affairs of Sri Radha and Krishna. He also compiled 2 important dramas named, remember these? And this is a bit of a trick one because, Vidagdha Madhav and Lalita Madhav. And one is about Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, and one is about his pastimes in Dwarka, but which is which?
Dwarka is Lalita. No, the other way around.
No, that's the trick. Lalita Madhav is Krishna in Dwarka, and Vidagdha Madhav is in Vrindavan. Because you think, Lalita, Krishna is one of his names, Dira Lalita, he's playful, always playful, and that's you think in Vrindavan, but it's actually it's Dwarka Lila. And Vidagdha Madhava in Vrindavan. Different pastimes in Dwarka, Krishna's like a Kshatriya prince. It's very, very different, And in Vrindavan he's a Gopa. It's like a totally very different mood, and similarly his parents, Vasudeva and Devaki, Kshatriya line, and Nanda and Yashoda, the cowherd community in Vrindavan, were actually his foster parents. But technically speaking, in the eternal, it's eternal. Srila Rupa Goswami compiled 100,000 verses, beginning with the book Dana Keli Kaumudi. In all these scriptures, he elaborately explained the transcendental mellows of the activities of Vrindavan. 100,000 verses, that's Mahabharata is 100,000 verses, right? Yeah, precisely. Everything's very scientific, right? A Vedic situation. And Srila Govinda Maharaj said there's another Mahabharat, or an extension of Mahabharat, which they have on the heavenly planets, which isn't even existing in this world, so I don't know about that. But, so that was 100,000 verses. But the Goswami who wrote the most volume was, of course, Jiva Goswami. Wrote 400,000 verses. That's nearly 500,000 verses. And so he's... but he was the next generation after Rupa and Sanatan, and he had to defend their... against a lot of opposition at that time. People claiming that the teachings of Rupa and Sanatan coming from Mahaprabhu weren't Vedic. They had no root in the Vedic scriptures. They were something made up later on. Sentimental baptism. Bhakti. So he proved that the root of them, the source of them, is firmly there in the Vedic scriptures, but was fully manifested and revealed through Mahaprabhu. Yeah, that was a big... And you know that example when that person challenged Rupa Goswami to a debate? You know the story, right? And he didn't want to engage. He thought, what is this? Just, for whatever reason, we don't know it, but he was... but Jiva Goswami couldn't tolerate that, and he met that person and engaged with them and defeated them soundly. And Rupa Goswami was not pleased, He thought it was some egoistic type thing, that. And Jiva Goswami was mortified, and he went to Govardhan, and apparently he was just living in a cave there and fasting. And that's where he wrote some of his great works, in that condition. And then they didn't know where he'd gone. And then one time they were bathing in the Jamuna, Rupa and Sanatan, and Jiva Goswami, he became so frustrated, he thought, what is the use of my life, I displeased my guru in this way. So he tore up his thing he'd written, threw it in the Jamuna. And they say that some piece of that came and touched on Rupa and Sanatan when they were bathing. And and Sanatana Goswami, he picks up, and just by seeing that fragment of paper and reading, he could understand, this is by Jiva, it's written this. And he said to Rupa, then you have to be kind with him. You have to be kind with him now. What's the reason he gave though? There's some specific reason.
Because he was going to give up his life.
Because he said there was some reference in there that Patita Pavan, you are kind to all the jivas, most merciful on the jivas, and jiva is suffering so much, so you have to give your mercy to Jiva Goswami. So then Rupa, he sort of relented, And they went and they found him, but he was like emaciated, like starved nearly to death, And he came back. That was.
Wasn't there some pandit who was walking around and getting the signatures from everyone?
That was it. Yeah.
And that Jiva Goswami, as a disciple of Rupa Goswami, he came and he defeated him.
Yeah, where have you been? We've just been talking about it.
Really?
Sorry.
I didn't hear that.
No, that's right. You were doing your story. The son of Sri Vallabh, or Anupam, Srila Rupa Goswami's younger brother, was the great learned scholar named Srila Jiva Goswami. After announcing everything, Srila Jiva Goswami went to Vrindavan. Later he also wrote many books on devotional service and expanded the work of preaching. In particular, Srila Jiva Goswami compiled the book named, his most famous work probably, Bhakti Sandarbha, or Bhagavat Sandarbha, also called Sat Sandarbha because there's 6 parts of it, which is the essence of all scriptures. From this book one can obtain a conclusive understanding of devotional service and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He also compiled a book named Gopal Champu, which is the essence of all Vedic literature. In this book he has exhibited the ecstatic loving transactions and pastimes of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. In the Sat Sandarbha, Srila Jiva Goswami set forth the truths about transcendental love of Krishna. In this way he expanded 400,000 verses in all his books. When Jiva Goswami wanted to go to Mathura from Bengal, he requested permission from Srila Nityananda Prabhu. Because of Jiva Goswami's relationship with Rup and Sanatan Goswami, who were greatly favoured by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Nityananda Prabhu placed his feet on the head of Srila Jiva Goswami and embraced him. That's the, is it Navadvipam Mahatmya? Is the story of that? Jiva Goswami's parikrama in Vrindavan. Yeah. And then this is what Nityananda Prabhu said to Jiva. Shikra tumi joho Vrindavani Tomar Vangshe Prabhu Tija Chena Seistani. Yes, go to Vrindavan. That place has been awarded to your family, to your father and uncles by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and therefore you must go there immediately. By the order of Nityananda Prabhu, he went to Vrindavan and actually achieved the result of his order, Nityananda Prabhu's order, for he compiled many books for a long time and preached the cult of Bhakti from there. These 3, Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami and Jiva Goswami, are my spiritual masters, and so also is Raghunath Das Goswami. I therefore offer prayers at their lotus feet, for I am their servant. When we sing at the end, Hari Harayanam Krishna, there's one verse, says something Mora Pancha grass. The dust of their lotus feet is my 5 kinds of foodstuffs. Dust of the feet of the Goswamis. 5 kinds of foodstuffs means? Does it mean licked, chewed, sunk? Licked, chewed, drunk and sucked? That's 4.
Isn't it bitter sweets?
Is that what it's referring to? Doesn't maybe?
I think
5 rasas. There's 7 rasas though, aren't there? 7. Yeah. Thus I've described how the Lord again met with Sanatana Goswami. By hearing this, I can understand the Lord's desire. These characteristics of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are like sugar cane that one can chew to relish transcendental juice. Sri Rup Raghunath Padijora Asha Chaitanya Charitamrit Kahi Krishna Das. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rup and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrit, following in their footsteps. Jai.